Hello, and welcome, wayward travelers, to the Scarlet Tavern, where stories are told in candlelight and truth is chased like spirits in a bottle. We are here back with part 2 of Ruby Ridge. As our last one went a little long-winded, we decided to break it up into 2. So we are back. We're going to do Ruby Ridge, which, of course, this begins to lead to other things that we'll talk about, including Waco, things that Ruby Ridge inspired.
I want to point out that the script is the same size as all the other scripts. I don't know why this is longer.
We went longer-winded. We talked more. So it happens. Oh well. Just gives the people more content.
But we're not going to take off anything scheduled to.
Yep. Everything's all still the same. We're going to be doing all the same content again. This then leads to Waco, which then leads to Timothy McVeigh, his be all you can be ass. Why is it always the Army? It's always the Army.
No.
Yes.
What's his nuts that we did? Or he was Air Force.
Yeah.
Yeah, but look at the rest of the terrorists.
Yeah.
They're all Army.
What is the Army doing? Like, seriously.
Ben's next.
No.
All right, so let's get started. So, inside the Weaver cabin, the family and Kevin Harris were dealing with the immediate and devastating aftermath of the confrontation. They had lost their dog, Striker, and 14-year-old Sammy. Reports from the scene described emotional cries and responses from within the cabin as the family realized what had happened to them. The body of Sammy remained outside initially near the shed area, where it was later observed by law enforcement. The family stayed inside the modest plywood cabin they had constructed years earlier, now surrounded by armed federal agents in the dark mountains. The marshals who had been directly involved in the firefight provided initial statements and reports about the sequence of events. There were noted variations in these early descriptions, particularly regarding who fired the first shot and the precise movements of each participant during the brief but chaotic exchange. Roderick maintained in his accounts that the dog was shot because it posed an immediate threat by charging the team. The Weaver side, in later testimony, described the marshals as trespassers who had shot the family dog without provocation, prompting a defensive response from Sammy. These differing perspectives would be examined in detail during the federal trial and subsequent congressional hearings.
I personally believe the dog did actually attack.
I do too.
I mean, this group was sent there just to observe only. It would make no sense for them to.
Especially they have no body armor.
Exactly.
Why are they going to open fire?
Not only that, but they give the energy of a family that would train their dog to go after people.
I mean, they live out in the woods where there's animals that dog needs to be able to protect them. So the dog did what it was supposed to do. It
just did it to the wrong people.
Exactly. So probably did attack the marshal. They shot in self-defense. Sammy shot, thinking like, dog. He shot and.
So federal authorities activated the U.S. Marshals Service Crisis Center in Washington, D.C. to coordinate the rapidly evolving situation. As darkness settled over the mountainside, law enforcement personnel remained in position around the cabin. The remote location, with its steep trails, limited road access, and isolation approximately 40 miles from the Canadian border, complicated logistics for the responders. Additional resources continued to arrive throughout the night, including more marshals, state police, and support personnel. No substantive negotiations with the family inside the cabin had begun yet, and the atmosphere remained extremely tense. The events of August 21st represented a sudden and tragic escalation of a long-running fugitive case. A surveillance and reconnaissance mission planned over many months with the explicit goal of minimizing risk to all involved had instead resulted in the deaths of a federal marshal, a 14-year-old boy, and the family dog. The total of 19 rounds fired, as confirmed by ballistics analysis, left behind a scene of shell casings scattered along the trail, bullet paths strewed the vegetation, and the bodies of Stryker and Sammy Weaver. The exact origin of the shot that killed Sammy was of particular concern in all subsequent investigations, with the Senate Subcommittee on Terrorism, Technology, and Government Information later reviewing expert analysis, but ultimately declining to conclude that specific point. Physical evidence collected in the days and weeks after the incident, including shell casings from the various weapons used, the locations of the bodies, and the distances between participants, form the foundation for reconstructions of the firefight. The op team's observations from the ridge provided additional context, though they had not been in direct line of fire. As the sun set on August 21st, the standoff was fully underway, with federal forces surrounding the property and the Weaver family contained within the cabin. The loss of life on both sides had transformed the situation into a national crisis that would draw intense scrutiny from multiple agencies, courts, and Congress in the weeks, months, and years that followed. The confrontation unfolded rapidly once Stryker's barking drew the family members down the trail. What began as a routine part of the marshal's reconnaissance turned deadly within minutes. The documented ballistics evidence, the positions of the participants along the trail, the radio communications calling for assistance, and the immediate mobilization of multiple law enforcement agencies all contributed to the chaotic and tragic scene that authorities faced by evening. The remote and rugged nature of Ruby Ridge, with its limited visibility in the forested areas and the challenges of coordinating a large response in such terrain, added layers of complexity to the events of that day. Throughout the night of August 21st into the early hours of August 22nd, law enforcement continued to secure the area. The multi-agency presence grew as more personnel and equipment arrived. The Boundary County Sheriff's Office, Idaho State Police, U.S. Border Patrol, and Idaho National Guard worked alongside the U.S. Marshal Service to maintain the perimeter. The FBI's involvement was already being discussed at high levels in Washington, with preparations underway for the hostage rescue team to deploy. Inside the cabin, the family remained together, grieving the loss of Sammy and dealing with the presence of armed agents outside. So, on the morning of August 22nd, 1992, the FBI's HRT, the hostage rescue team, yes, very good at what they do, began assuming a primary operational leadership role at the remote Ruby Ridge site in the Selkirk Mountains of northern Idaho. The HRT had been notified of the previous day's firefight and the deaths of Deputy U.S. Marshal William Deegan and 14-year-old Samuel Weaver, and the team moved quickly to deploy its highly trained tactical personnel to the scene. HRT members arrived and immediately began coordinating with the U.S. Marshal Service, personnel already on site, as well as officers from the Idaho State Police, Boundary County Sheriff's Office, U.S. Border Patrol, and members of the Idaho National Guard who had been called in to provide additional support.
Now, one of the things that a lot of the government got criticized for is, I guess, the scale of everything, because if you ever look at any of the archival videos of everything, it looks basically like they set up a FOB, like a military forward operating base there, and that was a lot of criticism, but I just, one of the problems that I think we'll cover is that all of those militias in the area started their own gathering and marshaling around the area as well. So it was, I guess at the time it was seen as imperative to create basically like a defensive around their.
So, the situation at the Weaver cabin remained extremely tense following the events of August 21st, with the family and Kevin Harris inside the modest plywood structure they had built years earlier on the hillside overlooking Ruby Creek. The remote location, with its steep trails, dense forest, and limited road access, posed significant logistical challenges for the multi-agency response now unfolding. Before any HRT snipers moved into their assigned observation posts on the ridges surrounding the cabin, specially formulated rules of engagement were drafted specifically for this operation. These rules differed in important respects from the FBI's standard deadly force policy, which applied in most other situations. The new rules instructed the snipers that before the delivery of any surrender announcement, they could and should take a shot at any armed adult male who appeared outside the cabin, provided the shot could be taken without endangering any children. The rules were reviewed at FBI headquarters and with the Marshal Service before being approved for use.
I'm very shocked.
I'm not. HRT Commander Richard Rogers conducted a detailed briefing for the team members of the National Guard Armory in Bonners Ferry at approximately 9 a.m. on August 22nd. Following the briefing, the sniper and observer teams departed on foot from the armory area between 2:30 and 3:30 p.m. They made their way through the steep, heavily wooded terrain to reach their designated positions on the ridges. The teams arrived at their observation post between 5:07 and 5:22 p.m. At approximately 5:58 p.m. on August 22nd, FBI sniper Lon Haruchi, who was positioned roughly 200 yards from the cabin on one of the overlooking ridges, fired 2 shots in rapid succession. The first shot struck Randy Weaver in the right arm while he was standing near a small outbuilding or shed area that contained the body of his son, Sammy. Moments later, as Randy Weaver, Kevin Harris, and Weaver's daughter Sarah began running back toward the open door of the cabin, Haruchi fired the second shot. This bullet first struck Kevin Harris in the chest as he moved through the doorway, and then continued to strike and kill Vicky Weaver. Vicky was standing just inside the open cabin door, holding her 10-month-old daughter, Elishaba, in her arms at the time. She died instantly from a gunshot wound to the head. The infant daughter was not injured. Vicky Weaver's body remained inside the cabin for the entire remaining duration of the standoff. So, when you take any kind of weapons course, one of the thing that you are taught is to know what is beyond your target. So you do not fire unless you are willing to kill what is in front of you and injure or maim what is beyond that, especially these rounds. Doesn't say exactly what he was firing. I will assume a 223, something like that, because that's usually what the HRT members use. That's a pretty big round.
Not something that he.
That's about that big a round. It's pretty massive.
He used custom built action 308 caliber sniper rifle, which was manufactured by HS Precision.
Probably a 308 Lapua. So that's even bigger. And we'll put a hole about that big in a target.
So, quick little snippet about Lon Rachi. Funny enough, he's actually from Hawaii. Went to the U.S., went to West Point, and he served as an infantry officer in the U.S. Army, and then for joining the FBI. So, to me, this is not some. Oh, I didn't know. You knew what you were doing.
Well,
I mean, to me, I'm a little critical about this. I mean, I understand the rules of engagement were approved. Hey, you see an armed male, you can shoot without saying anything. Okay, understand. They've already thrown this, shown to be a threat there. But as you said, know your backdrop. You can't tell me he didn't see Vicky.
I don't think he
wouldn't be able to.
Door, if I remember from trial,
the door was partially closed.
The door was closed, and Kevin was pushing it open as he was shot.
From my understanding was that he had a view of Vicky.
No. He did not need to shoot Vicky.
Now, it could have been like the specific situation. You guys would know more about this than I would. But should he even have shot when the other child was right there? Like when he shot her when he shot
so-
him in the shoulder. I get he's got to get him away so they can get the kids to safety, but
So,
that seems a little close to me.
a good sniper, I mean, a good sniper can hit his target
Yeah.
through anything. But I mean, as long as it's obvious, if he wanted to shoot near the daughter, she would have been shot. But
Yeah.
I don't know what his sight picture looked like. It'd be kind of hard
Yeah.
to tell. Why did he shoot him in the shoulder? Did he not adjust for the wind? Did he not
Mhm.
adjust for the angle? Because this is a really weird place. If you're going to shoot somebody, especially like this, you're aiming for center mass.
Yeah.
You unfortunately, movies have kind of ruined a lot of stuff where you see snipers shooting headshots and things like that. That's very rare. You only do a headshot if that's the only target you have, and you have to be a very good sniper. Like I'm not a sniper by any means. I feel like I'm a decent marksman. I would never shoot in the head because this gives me a bigger target.
I
Yeah.
remember when I was weapon. My instructors would say, "Yes, taught to the chest." They're like, "Pam, you can't hit the broadside of a barn. Shoot the chest."
Well, the one to the head is just a confirmation that they're dead.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I would really like to know what his sight picture looked like.
Yeah.
To be able to do this. He couldn't see Vicky because of the way everything was done. Should he have taken the shot? Probably not, because he doesn't know what's back there. God forbid he was a foot lower
Yeah.
and killed the 10-month-old.
I just
Mhm.
again I really question the whole just
Yeah.
shoot on sight.
So I question that. It actually hit doors. So it hit the way it sounds, hit Harris, went through the door, hit Vicky.
I don't see how that's possible.
And it said the bullet penetrated the door, wounding Harris and fatally striking Vicky.
I don't see how that's possible unless the door swung in and not
Because the
out.
bullet would, even if that's it's already, the bullet's already distorted going through a human. Now it's got to go through a fairly solid wooden door, even if it is just plywood. Still,
I mean, my front door opens in.
I don't understand how that would have. I don't get how it would have went through the door, because if he's opening the door all the way, there's no door to go through because the door's going to be here. I mean, if it opens in, fine, but still, it still wouldn't matter because he's opening it in. The doors are already going to be past him if you're shooting him in the chest.
Yeah. So it says the context of the shot says over the target. Hiruchi has testified he was targeting Harris, who was armed and fleeing into the cabin. Hiruchi claimed he did not know Vicky Weaver was standing directly behind the wooden door and glass pane.
So she was smushing herself between the door and the wall?
So
she was opening the door to let them in.
So then the door has to open in for that to happen. And he was shot through the back.
Yes.
Okay, that makes a big difference. We're saying he was shot through the chest.
I think it was in the back and it exited his chest.
Okay, well, there's a difference. There's a difference between shot through the chest and an exit wound through the chest. That's a whole different sight picture.
Which is, I mean, again, I
mean, if the guy's running away, I'm still going to shoot him in the back.
He's a threat.
He poses a threat by law, by federal law. I have the right to shoot a fleeing suspect if they pose a threat to others. I can shoot you in the back if you're running away as long as you pose a threat. We know he posed a threat. So, but again, it's the big thing is the sight picture. If you don't know what's behind that door, what if there's 6 kids behind that door?
Yeah.
So Randy was shot in the back with a bullet exiting his right arm. While he was lifting the latch on the shed to visit the body of Sam. And then as Weaver, his 16-year-old daughter Sarah, and Harris ran back toward the cabin, Ferrucci fired a second bullet, wounding Harris in the chest. So that's what it's saying, it's the chest. But it was, he got hit in the back, exit wound in the chest.
Okay, the first one doesn't make sense either. So, looking at Ruby Ridge, right? Ruby Ridge has different sight lines. So, in order for that bullet to go through the back and exit out the armpit, the sniper, Ferrucci, would have had to have been lower
Mm-hmm.
than Randy Weaver.
Because I believe the house is at the top of the ridge. Right?
Correct. But who's going to snipe from a low position?
Unless for me, again, I'm not a sniper. I'm not even that decent. I'm only on my best.
He's a crack shot.
I'm not the best shot. But my thinking is the only way I'm going to shoot up is if my target is at the crest of whatever height it is, so I get a full view of him. Anything else, I really can't see him.
Yeah, it's just weird.
Honestly, if you look at pictures, really not the photo of where he been.
It's weird.
I mean, but this kind of highlights the whole thing. The whole what is the clusterfuck that is Ruby Ridge. I mean, they're in a everyone's in a bad position. Realistically,
this whole operation should have been shut down.
I mean, this should never happen. Well, what should have happened is, in my opinion, they should have sent like a couple of marshals with the local deputies, drove up to his house and be like, Randy, come on now, you know better. Let's get out of here.
Yeah.
Maybe Randy does decide to throw down. But before all this incident, from what I've read and seen, the Weavers are all tough.
Yeah,
They're not violent.
Yeah, they really, like, if you, like, with all that I've read, they were really, like, homebody.
They just stayed at...
They stayed home. Like, did they go to some Aryan Nation meetings? Yes. But they kept meeting over and over and over. We were not, yes, we talked to them, we were friends with them, but we had none of their views.
Our
views were different. Like, they had the same views, but not.
I don't believe that. I believe they had all the same views as the Aryan Nation.
Yeah, I was going to say, if you're going to Aryan Nation meetings,
you're not
you
hanging
have
out with those guys and not having the same views.
Yeah.
Like, Ben and I aren't going to go hang out with the KKK members.
No. Yeah, exactly.
They could have everything. They could have free ice cream, hamburgers.
They could pay me $1,000 and I'm still not going to go do it because I don't believe in what they believe in.
Exactly.
So you can't tell me that they didn't have the same views.
Now that doesn't necessarily mean they're violent, though.
But not all the Aryan Nation were violent either.
Oh,
a lot of them were drug runners.
Yeah.
It was a lot of and obviously we're not speaking anything good about the Aryan Nation. No. But to put it in retrospect, all of the Aryan Nation wasn't violent either. There were drug runners. There were gun runners. The gun runners were the violent ones.
Yeah, most of the people who lived in this area just wanted to be left alone from the federal government. The Weavers especially. They just so.
And it's like with the Weavers, like Randy did run for sheriff, county sheriff. He lost, but he still ran for sheriff. So they weren't completely anti-government. They were just anti-corruption.
Yeah. So as we're going to get into it more, but this, like we were just discussing.
This is just such a fucking...
It really is. And as I said, I'll say it there. The whole shoot on sight order was a mistake.
Anybody with half a... No. It would not have happened that way.
Listen, if you want to get away from the government, go to Guyana. They'll never mess with you. Go to Guyana, drink the Kool-Aid. You'll be good. Jonestown.
Jim Jones.
I'm like,
one of my favorite. Topics.
I did the research on this.
It's one of my favorite topics. Anyways, so in the immediate aftermath of the two shots on August 22nd, the operational focus at Ruby Ridge shifted from active tactical engagement to a sustained containment and negotiation phase. An APC, or an armored personnel carrier, pieces of shit, were brought closer to the cabin area around 6:30 p.m. because they're fully up armored, they're bulletproof. 50 cal won't go through it. An FBI hostage negotiator used a loudspeaker mounted on the vehicle to announce that federal arrest warrants existed for Randy Weaver and Kevin Harris, and to urge anyone inside the cabin to come out peacefully and accept a telephone that could be used for direct negotiations. No immediate response or movement was observed from inside the cabin.
I really don't blame them.
I wouldn't move either.
I mean, again, this is also why this. You want them to negotiate,
But
and
you
come
just
out pe-
killed
pe-
this dude's wife
And
Yeah, I mean,
son.
Yeah, well,
and
the,
son
had
with
to,
the baby
but-
in the arms.
yeah, the son.
Deserved it.
Well, the son started it. Let's
Yeah.
just.
Yeah.
No offense to a 14-year-old kid. He's a dumb 14-year-old kid. That's what 14-year-olds do. But yes, he did shoot at the marshals, and it started the whole thing. But this is what the problem is with the shoot on sight order, right? You just turn. Why are they going to talk to you? They were just going out to mourn their dead family member, and you just started taking pot shots at them, making them
Yeah.
all run for cover. I wouldn't go talk to you either.
And then as they're trying to run back into cover,
You're
you
shooting
shoot the
them.
wife.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So later that same evening, due to dropping temperatures and the onset of darkness in the mountainous terrain, some HRT sniper teams and certain U.S. Marshal Service Special Operations Group personnel were temporarily withdrawn from their exposed ridge observation posts for safety and rest. FBI SWAT teams were then deployed to secure the main command post area and control access to the narrow road leading up to the cabin. On the following day, Sunday, August 23rd, the HRT teams returned to their ridge observation post around 7:30 a.m. Commander Rogers, not Captain Rogers, but Commander Rogers, personally led additional teams closer to the cabin perimeter and began making repeated announcements over a bullhorn, urging the occupants inside to exit the structure and enter into negotiations with authorities. There's no audible response from the cabin. In the evening, armored personnel carriers were used to move several non-housing structures near the cabin methodically. During this operation, authorities first became aware of the death of Samuel Weaver when his body was discovered in or near the small birthing shed area outside the main cabin. Yeah, it was.
And the birthing shed where Vicky gave birth to
Yeah,
The daughter.
the youngest, who she was holding.
Mm.
Elishaba.
Can't pronounce the name, so
Is that a biblical name?
Elishaba, yes.
Yeah, it's a very biblical name.
In the days that followed August 23rd, negotiators continued their efforts to establish any form of direct communication with those inside the cabin. Listen, at this point, everybody's fucking dead. Just go in there, kill the last guy at this point,
Yeah.
and just...
From what I also read from the daughters, the older ones who remember this, they with the way they told it was, mom is dead, just a sheet, like a thin sheet, is over her body in the living room, and the FBI is continuously like shouting at her because I guess the FBI wasn't even really aware that they
Yeah.
killed Vicky. So they're
yeah, that's coming up. Yeah, I know the baby was covered in Vicky.
Yeah, so Elishaba, remember, she's the wife of Aaron,
Oh.
and the mother to the first generation of Jewish priests, but the name means God is my oath.
Hmm.
So, in the days that followed August 23rd, negotiators continued their efforts to establish any form of direct communication with those inside the cabin. Loudspeaker announcements were made regularly, including specific messages directed to Vicky Weaver by name. Keep in mind, they don't know she's dead.
yeah.
They couldn't see inside. The family and Kevin Harris remained inside the plywood cabin with Vicky's body present. The specially formulated rules of engagement that had been in place since the HRT's arrival on August 22nd were formally revoked on Wednesday, August 26th, 4 days later, at approximately 10:53 a.m. At that point, the FBI's standard deadly force policy was reinstated for all personnel assigned to the cabin perimeter.
So Kevin did start getting an infection. And
Oh yeah, he's got a bullet wound for 4 fucking days.
And Rachel, who is the daughter, she was in the cabin when Vicky was shot.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
So I remember, and Elishaba was covered in Vicky's, and Rachel had grabbed the baby from
Yeah.
Vicky.
Um,
So, direct communication attempts by law enforcement personnel produced only limited results during the early days of the siege. On Friday, August 28th, the FBI brought in Bo Gritz, a retired Army lieutenant colonel and Vietnam veteran who had established connections with various right-wing and militia groups over the years, to serve as a civilian intermediary and assist with negotiations. Gritz had prior experiences in other high-profile standoff situations and was viewed by authorities as someone who might be able to establish a measure of trust with Randy. On the evening of August 28th, at approximately 6:58 p.m., Gritz was transported into the Weaver compound inside an armored personnel carrier. He approached the cabin and spoke directly with Randy Weaver at the doorway. During this conversation, Weaver informed Gritz that Vicky had been killed on August 22nd and that both he and Kevin Harris had sustained wounds during the events of that day.
Yeah, Bo Gritz was kind of a controversial decision to bring in because I think some people there mistakenly thought that Randy and Bo knew each other, and it wasn't until Bo kind of got on scene they were like, "Hey, we're here to bring you to see your friend Randy," and he's like, "Nope."
Yeah.
Bo was like, he was kind of like self-promoting himself as like this anti-establishment, anti-government thing, because again, the right-wing extremist was really getting going at this point. He was like their center, like their mascot, because he was like a former Green Beret Delta operator. He was a highly decorated Vietnam vet. But yeah, he's a little controversial.
Negotiations began to gain measurable momentum in the final days of the standoff. On Sunday, August 30th, Kevin Harris, who had been seriously wounded in the chest by the second shot fired on August 22nd, 8 days prior, decided to surrender after extended discussions that were facilitated by Bo Gritz and Jack McLam, a retired LAPD officer, who had also been brought in to assist with the negotiations. Harris was carefully removed from the property and transported for immediate medical treatment. Later that same evening, Gritz and other intermediaries helped carry Vicky Weaver's body out of the cabin so that it could be removed from the scene by authorities. On Monday, August 31st, negotiations continued throughout the morning. Later that day, Randy Weaver and his 3 surviving daughters, Sarah, Rachel, and Elishaba, exited the cabin and surrendered peacefully to federal authorities. The 11-day standoff that had begun with a confrontation on August 21st came to a calm and orderly conclusion, with no additional gunfire occurring after the shots were fired on August 22nd.
So you mean this Bo literally just walked up, knocked on the "Hey, let's talk."
It's rapport.
And keep in mind, though, Randy had heard of Bo. Again, everyone in that circle that Randy did, they all knew who Bo Gritz was.
He was well decorated. He was a badass.
Yeah, he was. And now, just also to keep in mind, just the amount of pressures going on. Like all the locals in this area, they're forming like a huge their own little like picket lines around the FBI, protesting, calling out the FBI. Some of the actual Aryan Nation guys actually tried to breach the perimeter and there's like another like little mini standoff. 2 guys in a truck. Turned out they were loaded with guns, bullets, supplies, and
they
bomb
were
making.
stopped.
They were trying to get up to Ruby Ridge to help like stand with Randy.
Yeah. Throughout the entire period from August 23rd through August 31st, law enforcement personnel from the multiple agencies involved maintained a secure perimeter around the Weaver property while facing significant logistical challenges due to the extremely remote, rugged mountainous location. The terrain in the Selkirk Mountains featured steep trails, dense forests, limited road access, and variable weather, which complicated every aspect of the operation. Personnel had to be rotated on a regular schedule to prevent fatigue. Supplies had to be delivered by helicopter or ground transport over difficult routes. An observation post had to be staffed continuously in exposed positions that offered little shelter. The presence of Vicky Weaver's body inside the cabin added a layer of both emotional weight and operational complexity to the containment effort, as a family remained inside with the deceased while surrounded by armed federal, state, and local officers. The Weaver family's profound and long-standing distrust of federal authorities, rooted in their religious beliefs and reinforced by the events of August 21st and 22nd, directly contributed to the slow, deliberate pace of the initial negotiation attempts. The civilian intermediaries, particularly Bo Gritz and Jack McLam, ultimately played a crucial role in bridging the communication gap that direct law enforcement efforts had been unable to close in the early days. Their involvement helped move the process forward when loudspeaker announcements and other standard methods had produced little or no response from inside the cabin. The eventual surrender on August 30th and 31st allowed authorities to take the remaining occupants into custody, remove Vicki Weaver's body, and begin the careful process of documenting and securing the scene. The remainder of the standoff, from the sniper shots on the afternoon of August 22nd through the final surrender of August 31st, represented a clear and deliberate shift in operational focus. The early hours and days after the shots were characterized by tactical positioning on the ridges, strict adherence to the specially drafted rules of engagement, and the immediate logistical adjustments required after the deaths. So, after Randy Weaver and Kevin Harris surrendered to authorities on August 31st, they were taken into federal custody. Federal prosecutors presented evidence to a grand jury in the District of Idaho. The grand jury returned indictments charging both men in multiple serious offenses connected to the events of August 21st and 22nd. Kevin Harris faced charges that included first-degree murder and the shooting death of Deputy U.S. Marshal William Deegan, along with additional counts of assault on federal officers and conspiracy charges related to the initial confrontation. Randy Weaver was charged with aiding and abetting in the murder of Deegan, along with other counts connected to the standoff. These new charges were brought on top of the original federal weapon violations stemming from the 1989 shotgun sale to the ATF informant and the failure to appear charges that originated from the missed court date in February 1991.
Jesus, they're just still got those original charges.
Yep. The joint federal criminal trial of Randy Weaver and Kevin Harris began in April 1993 in the U.S. District Court in Boise, Idaho. Judge Edward Lodge presided over the proceedings. Gary Spence, a well-known defense attorney experienced in high-profile cases, represented Randy Weaver. David Nevin represented Kevin Harris. The defense strategy centered on thorough cross-examination of government witnesses rather than calling a large number of defense witnesses. Spence and Nevin concentrated their efforts on challenging the government's account of the sequence of events on August 21st, questioning the justification for the shots fired during the reconnaissance mission, examining the reliability of ballistics evidence, scrutinizing the conduct of federal agents throughout the operation and the subsequent siege, and highlighting inconsistencies in early reports versus later testimony. The trial became a detailed examination of who fired first, the movements of the participants along the trail, the role of the family dog, Stryker, the decisions made by law enforcement in the remote mountainous setting, and the overall chain of command that led to the deadly confrontation and prolonged siege. The trial extended over several weeks and featured extensive testimony. U.S. Marshals who had participated in the August 21st recon team described the terrain, the dogs barking, the initial shots, and the movements of the participants. FBI agents involved in the hostage rescue team deployment testified about their arrival, the briefing on the rules of engagement, and the positioning of sniper teams on the ridges. Ballistics experts presented a detailed analysis of shell casings, bullet trajectories, and the 19 rounds fired on August 21st, as well as the 2 shots fired on August 22nd. Other law enforcement personnel testified about the multi-agency response, the establishment of the perimeter, the logistical challenges of the remote location, and the coordination required to maintain security over the 11 days. Witnesses described the terrain, participants' movements, the weapons used, and the decisions made during the critical moments. The proceedings allowed both sides to present evidence and arguments regarding claims of self-defense, the circumstances surrounding the deaths of Deegan, Samuel Weaver, and Vicki Weaver, and the overall decision-making process that led to the deadly confrontation and siege. On July 8, 1993, after lengthy deliberations, the jury delivered its verdicts. Kevin Harris was acquitted on every charge against him. Randy Weaver was acquitted on all of the major charges related to the standoff, including those involving the death of Marshal D. Weaver was convicted only on the 2 counts stemming from the earlier period, failing to appear for his original trial date in February 1991 and violating the conditions of his bond. In October 1993, Judge Lodge sentenced Randy Weaver to 18 months in prison and imposed a $10,000 fine. Because Weaver had already spent approximately 14 months in pretrial detention and received credit for good behavior, he was released from Canyon County Jail in Caldwell, Idaho in mid-December 1990.
So after all that,
Nothing happened.
Yeah, I was gonna say nothing happened to him.
Nope.
So
Welcome to our judicial system.
Randy has he passed away on May of 22, at the age of 74. Kevin Harris is still alive, and he actually received a $380,000 civil settlement with the U.S. government in 2000.
I feel like he got a little screwed out of some more money.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
Sarah, Rachel, and Alicia each received $1 million settlement for wrongful death from the federal government in '95.
Yeah.
I mean, your brother's dead. Your mom's dead. Here's some money. Now, if I remember correctly, don't the daughters don't they still own Ruby Ridge? That's family.
Yeah.
That's their
Yeah.
family land.
So Sarah, who's the oldest, is in Montana, and working as published author and speaker who shares a message of hope and forgiveness. She and her father co-authored Federal Siege at Ruby Bridge in Our Own Words. Rachel has 2 children of her own now and moved to Montana. And Alicia has her own nail business.
Yeah.
So they all moved out of Idaho and went to Montana.
Yeah.
Didn't really go that far.
I feel horrible for all the kids in this situation. I feel like the
I do
adults
too.
should have gotten child endangerment too, because it's like,
Yeah.
when you start a firefight, those kids are going to be in the line of fire.
Yep.
I mean, we said it before earlier in the last episode. This really could have all been prevented. Randy just freaking picked up the phone, called his lawyer, who had all the correct information that he needed. But Randy didn't do that. Now, granted, there was a lot of a communication mishap on the federal government's part for a good chunk of it, but he just didn't do anything to try and figure out. I mean, you're facing federal charges, whether they're justified or not. That's what a trial's for. You know?
And like, not only that, but who the fuck gives their 14-year-old son a gun?
Well,
And says, "Oh, I mean, you can give your kid a gun, but when there's cops and you know there might fire at said cops, you're putting your kid in danger."
They didn't know that the marshals were watching the house.
So he might have went out with a gun in case there was a bear or something.
I don't believe.
Yeah. So, from someone who grew up in Wisconsin, giving a 14-year-old a gun, that's common.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say if it was hunting or something like that, but if you know that they're probably there.
I don't know if they knew that
They know everything that was happening on
That's
that
true.
property. They can see everything.
Yeah. Again, we said it before. This area is very remote. There's only the Weavers there, and like maybe 20 miles away, the closest neighbors were the Aryans.
They knew that they were there. So, in the months following the conclusion of the criminal trial, the Department of Justice established a Ruby Ridge task force to perform a comprehensive internal review of the FBI's conduct during the operation. The task force examined every major element of the FBI's involvement, including the drafting and approval of the special rules of engagement for the HRT on August 22nd. The shots fired by FBI sniper Lon Haruchi, the coordination between the FBI and the U.S. Marshal Service, the intelligence gathering before and during the standoff, the negotiation efforts, and the procedures followed after the surrender.
I hope, honestly, I'm sorry, again, this is the last time I was saying, whoever came up with those rules of engagement to just shoot on site, it should never have been a thing. I understand they're dealing with in their eyes are seeing a group of armed, dangerous people who are responsible for the death of Deputy U.S. Marshal. But the job of law enforcement is to de-escalate the situation in hopes of fostering a peaceable outcome. If you want to target, destroy, all in the Green Berets, parachute in and take them out. That's a military job. The FBI is to make arrests because it's law enforcement. Taking shots willy-nilly just because you see them, it's reckless. As we've seen, it's reckless. A woman was killed who didn't need to be killed. They're lucky they didn't kill the baby.
In June 1994, the task force issued a detailed 542-page report. The report criticized several aspects of the FBI's actions. In particular, it concluded that the rules of engagement used on August 22nd did not fully conform to the constitutional standards for the use of deadly force in some circumstances. The report also identified shortcomings in intelligence assessment, command decision-making during the prolonged siege, post-incident documentation, and the accuracy of some after-action reporting. It noted that certain portions of the rules not only departed from the FBI's standard deadly force policy, but also contravened the Constitution of the United States, and that the rules may have created an atmosphere that encouraged the use of deadly force, thereby contributing to an unintentional death. The FBI conducted its own separate internal review through the Inspection Division and other oversight units. These reviews resulted in administrative disciplinary measures against certain FBI officials, and the Inspection Division is internal affairs for them.
Oh, really? That's what it's called?
Yes, it's the Inspection Division. Some individuals received formal letters of censure, while others were suspended for short periods due to their roles in drafting or approving the special rules of engagement and in preparing after-action reports. None of them were fired, just an FYI.
Yeah.
That is wrong.
They were suspended, given a slap on the wrist. Most of them were suspended for like 30 days, maybe up to 90 days, and then they were let back.
I mean,
letters of censure just essentially.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean,
it goes in their file.
LR's letter of it's a military.
It goes in their file. Basically, think of it as like, for any job employer, it's a written.
I mean, the whole conclusion read like it was just administrative discipline.
Yep.
Nothing happened to, like you said, nothing happened to them. This is just probably, if any of them tried to go for a promotion within the FBI, it was probably a little more difficult depending on where they went to.
Yeah.
Probably not in all likelihood. Back then, I mean, even today, but especially back then, the FBI really looked out for them. So nobody was going to really realistically get blamed for this, or at least punished.
In 1995, Congress directed significant attention to the Ruby Ridge incident. The Senate Judiciary Subcommittee on Terrorism, Technology, and Government Information, chaired by Senator Arlen Specter, conducted extensive public hearings. The subcommittee held 14 days of hearings between September 6 and October 19, 1995. During these sessions, 62 witnesses provided testimony, and the subcommittee reviewed thousands of pages of documents and physical evidence. Key witnesses included Randy Weaver, who testified on September 6, 1995, accompanied by counsel, and described the loss of his son Samuel and Vicky. His daughter Sarah Weaver also testified that day. Other witnesses included BATF Special Agent Herb Byerly, a panel of U.S. Marshals including Larry Cooper, Arthur Roderick, David Hunt, Joseph Thomas, and Francis Norris, who testified on September 5th, 1995. U.S. Attorney Maurice O. Ellsworth, former Deputy Attorney General George Terwilliger, something like that, and numerous FBI officials, including Director Louis Freeh, who testified on the final day.
So BAT Bureau called firearms.
Yeah.
In like 97, they dropped the bureau.
They need to drop the entire thing.
I mean, from what I understood, I've seen clips of this hearing. Randy did actually own up. In the end, he owned up to what he was responsible for.
So I did find the transcript. Him and Kevin both admitted, yeah, we messed up.
Too late.
Yeah.
Yeah, too little,
But-
too late. Now that you've let your kid get shot and you've let your wife get shot.
Listen, we're criticizing the shooting, all of that. But in retrospect, it's all Randy's fault.
Yeah, it is.
None of this would have happened if he wouldn't have been a piece of shit.
I was going to say
So-
it was a very tight situation for the people that were there, even if they did make mistakes.
So
on
I
the
mean,
top
I
side.
can say now.
Every side had.
So I can
Yeah.
say now what I would do differently, just because I do have experience in this world. I did work with the U.S. Marshals, all of that. But this was also in the 90s.
Yeah,
It's a totally different game now.
I was going to say I wasn't born yet.
We've changed things.
When were you born?
97, 2
Yeah.
years after.
The whole rules
Hey,
have changed so much that I can't say that I would do something different now, but maybe back
Mhm.
then, if I had worked for this, I wouldn't have.
well,
Yeah.
and to give context, from the late '80s till about now, there was a huge flood of anti-government criminal activities, white supremacist, right wing. This is also when the birth of the sovereign citizen was here.
Starting.
The Weavers were sovereign citizens.
Yeah, before sovereign citizen became a thing.
Yeah. So the government realistically from this period their reactions were like, oh my God, these people are really violent, and their first
Yeah.
thing is to, go out and kill. I mean, it took a whole decade for the left wing protesters in the '60s to kind of get to the point of where they're robbing banks and planting car bombs because they didn't get their way in the '60s, in the Vietnam War and everything. The right wing extremists just went straight to assassinations, bombings, and standoffs with. So it was very different. They really felt like these guys are not playing and they're here to kill us. It's kill or be killed. But again, if you're dealing with that situation, call the military. That's
Yeah.
what they're there for. The law enforcement, by its very definition, is to arrest, and you work within the confines of the Constitution. I mean, we all do, military and law enforcement. But if you want to get rid of a target, you send in special forces. You don't send the FBI.
And you deputize you by law enforcement as military.
It takes a wavering of posse comitatus president to do that.
So, the hearings thoroughly covered the original ATF investigation that led to the weapons charges, the U.S. Marshals Service's long-term surveillance, and the August 21st reconnaissance mission, FBI's deployment of the HRT and drafting of the rules of engagement, specific shots fired on August 22nd, the negotiation efforts during the siege, the role of civilian intermediaries, and the broader policy implications for federal law enforcement regarding the use of force in crisis management in high-risk situations. Subcommittees work contributed to ongoing national discussions and improving deadly force policies, interagency coordination, and oversight. So in 1995, the end of 1995, beginning of 1996, rules of use of force were changed. So for those that don't know, military has it too, but military is a little bit different. But in law enforcement, you have a deadly force policy. So basically, you can use up to, but not exceeding the force that's being established onto you. So if Ben were to come at me with a knife, I can shoot him because he is showing deadly force with that knife. And you hear the phrase, "Oh, bring a knife to a gunfight." I would rather bring a knife to a gunfight than another gun, because I can close the distance with a knife quicker than you can pull your gun out.
Yeah.
So people don't understand that. Everything that happens in law enforcement happens in less than a second.
Yeah.
Happens in 0.4 seconds.
And I know the part with the military when I was got changed. It got changed maybe just after I got to my first duty station. with, like, if someone Kayde side came at me, who's 5'2", and I felt in danger, I could technically pull my gun because he's posing a threat to me.
I will say you'll lose that case, but yes.
Yes. It was very specific, but that was like if he had like a baseball bat.
It's also the same thing of, well, we used to get people all the time say, "Oh, why don't you just shoot the person in the leg?"
And it can still hurt you.
Well, there's two things. On the physical side, adrenaline does wonders for people. People have been shot in the head and had so much adrenaline that they could still move. Number two, if I don't feel threatened enough to take your life and just shoot you in the leg to maim you, we don't shoot to maim, we shoot to kill. If I don't feel threatened enough to have to kill you to stop you, then I can use another means of force, aka the taser, pepper spray, baton, or my good old-fashioned fists, which is what I like to use. I had no problems punching somebody in the face when I was wrestling with them. And I had people go for my gun before. I actually just came across a picture of when somebody kicked me in the ribs and broke a couple of my ribs in like 2018. And I had a massive bruise this big because they were going for my gun. And I punched them in the throat and broke their trachea. They still lived, but I broke their trachea. Yeah, well, don't go for my gun. You're lucky I didn't shoot them. So, yeah. So in August 1995, while the Senate hearings were ongoing, the U.S. government reached a civil settlement with the Weaver family to resolve claims related to the deaths of Vicki Weaver and Samuel Weaver. The total settlement was around $3.1 million. Randy Weaver received $100,000, and each of the three surviving daughters, Sarah, Rachel, and Elishaba, received $1 million.
It still just seems paltry considering everything that went.
I mean, I don't think Randy deserved $100,000, but
I mean, I'm talking about the kids.
Yeah, I was gonna say the kids went through some shit. I can understand.
Yeah. So the settlement agreement explicitly stated that it did not constitute an admission of liability by the government.
Which is smart.
Because the government doesn't ever hold themselves accountable. In September 2000, the government entered into a separate civil settlement with Kevin Harris, agreeing to pay him $380,000 to resolve his claims for the injuries he sustained on August 22nd. This agreement also contained no admission of liability. State of Idaho indicted FBI sniper Lon Haruchi on charges of involuntary manslaughter in connection with the death of Vicki. The case raised complex legal questions concerning federal immunity for law enforcement officers acting in official capacity. After a series of procedural motions, appeals, and court rulings, the state charges against Haruchi were ultimately resolved without resulting in a conviction.
I'm actually shocked at that.
So this actually set a precedence for what happens now if there is a death, an officer-involved shooting. Now, so back then in the 90s, it didn't happen. It happened, but didn't happen as often. Now, if you are in an officer-involved shooting, which I have been in, your gun is obviously taken. It's taken for evidence. You are placed on administrative leave with pay. And then the investigators come in, and they grill you on everything, making sure that everything was justified. Basically, you become a murder suspect is what it is. Because at this point, until they prove it's a justified killing, you have committed murder. And then once the Office of Internal Affairs says, oh, this killing was justified, that the officer was justified, it is now no longer murder. It is now an officer-involved shooting in self-defense, or in defense of another. So this whole thing, because Lon went right back to work after this. So he wasn't placed on administrative leave. He was right back at work as a sniper.
He was by the FBI and continued to other capacities.
Yep.
Before retiring in 2006, program manager and contract officers technical representative. I will be right back.
So
we will be seeing Lon again in another one in our next episode.
Yeah. So, taken together, the 1993 federal criminal trial, the 1994 Department of Justice Task Force report, the internal FBI reviews, the 1995 Senate hearings, and the civil settlements with the Weaver family and Kevin Harris constitute the documented legal and administrative aftermath of the Ruby Ridge standoff. The criminal trial resulted in acquittals on the most serious charges arising from the August events, with, like we said earlier, Randy Weaver convicted only of the earlier failure to appear and bond violation counts. The Department of Justice and Senate reviews identified specific operational policy shortcomings while acknowledging the difficult circumstances. So they the documented events of the Ruby Ridge standoff, from the Weaver family's background through the legal troubles, the confrontation on August 21st, the developments on August 22nd, and the remainder of the siege and the extensive aftermath of the trials, reviews, and settlements represent one of the most thoroughly examined law enforcement incidents in modern U.S. history. And like we said, Sarah and Randy wrote a book about this. You can still find it. The money will go to Sarah. So, yeah. So,
I would say.
So, a quiet religious community living on a rural property outside. A leader who calls himself David Koresh. A broken UPS package that sparks a federal investigation. And one Sunday morning when ATF agents arrive with warrants, and everything erupts into a deadly 2.5-hour gunfight. 4 agents and at least 6 Branch Davidians dead. A peaceful compound turned into a battlefield. This is a documented story of how faith, fear, and federal authority collided at Mount Carmel. Part 1 of our 2-part series on the Waco siege drops next. It's heavy, it's complicated, and it still raises hard questions today. Thank you for joining us tonight in the Scarlet Tavern. The candles burn low, the stories burn deep, and the truth is always one drink. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.